What's up, chat? Happy New Year's Eve, everyone. It is Wednesday. The Warhamster has arrived and given us some interesting things to talk about. First off, thanks for coming in and hanging out with me, everybody, on this wonderful New Year's Eve. Hope you guys are ready for a grand new year full of Warhammer 40k. New stuff to come out, apparently a new campaign series, as well as, I don't know, maybe some new additions. Who knows? I think it's going to be a good time. But in any case, I'm here for it. I'm ready. And we're going to be talking about it here on TacticalTortoise as long as it happens. If you haven't checked it out already, please go check out my video from this morning. That being about salamanders. I'm actually going to drop a link in the description. I always get weird about the getting started videos because they have a really long lifespan. Like, they're good basically until the rules get outdated. Here's the video. But when I release them, they don't do very well, and then it makes me sad. But please go check them out. That video is an hour long, full of salamanders goodness. I talk about a bunch of the combos and the tactics that make factions really strong. So please go check that one out. Came out today. Also, if you're a YouTube channel member, you should expect, or a patron, you should expect to see a video talking about my Forge Father Seekers list coming out either later today or tomorrow. That'll be for patrons only. I'll talk about the list that I play competitively right now. Anyway, chat, too much content. I'm sorry. I care too much, chat.
Riong 6,931 donated $5 through Super Chat. Mordaka most broken thing of 2025? It literally became the Mordaka versus Mordaka meta.
I'm going to level with you, chat. Not even remotely close. Not even a smidge close to being the most broken thing of 2025. You have to remember, Mordaka became the Mordaka meta for like a week. It was, I think we had 1 month of the Mordaka meta. Literally not long enough for people to try to answer it. And like, it was right after Space Marines got nerfed the first time around. So like, Space Marines weren't quite as good, but they were still really good. And they had a lot of answers to that. And then if we had seen, I believe very close to that release, right? Emperor's Children came out like right after that. Emperor's Children, I think, would have played very well into that. It was like we had it for like such a small amount of time. I don't think people answered it. It certainly was the best thing in the game at the time. I don't want to make it sound like it wasn't. But if we compare that to Death Guard on release, are you fucking kidding me, dude? Emperor's Children on release didn't feel quite as impressive, but their win rate over a really long period of time was like 61% or something like insane, like 59%. It got like really high. Top tier players picked up Emperor's Children and immediately won every game with it. It was crazy. And I don't think we had enough time with Mordaka to necessarily tell if it was like the most broken thing ever. We also like, even just like Ultramarines in January, right? After Ultramarines got the Codex compliant buff, which was December 24. So when they had like 3 months of raid, Legion of Excess was post Grotsmith 2024. Like, over the course of the whole year, the number of insanely broken metagames we've seen in 40k has been staggering. And Mordaka was the one we saw for like the least length of time. So I don't even know if it was quite as close. You know, right, Eldar? I don't think that was last year, right? Was it? I don't think that was this year. It's not all of 10th edition. It's just for 2025. Or 6 bigs. Yeah, fucking 6 bigs in Infernal Lance. Or, excuse me. What is it? Iconoclast? No, not Iconoclast. The one with all the big guys. Lords of Dread. Excuse me. Lords of Dread. The 6 bigs, Lords of Dread. 5 bigs, Imperial Knights. Like 5 bigs and 2 Arbiger Imperial Knight or whatever. Like, come on. I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's even in the same ballpark as like, I don't know, I get sustained hits too on my shock attack gun and I can Zongron every turn. Yeah, I don't know, chat. In terms of total damage done, it was the shortest, but it was the most broken thing. I don't know. I mean, I think that certainly could have been the case, and I will definitely say that I think had we seen it more, maybe we optimized it more. It could have been that it became the most toxic list of 2025. But I don't know if it was necessarily like all that. Should we do a 2025 recap? That'd be fun. Either as a live stream or as a video. That might be a fun video. I'm trying to do more retrospective videos. And I think a recap at the end of the year would be actually really cool. We could be like, especially because this year was like crazy transformative, right? Like start of the year was Grotzmas, and then we saw like immediately like February, immediately like Grotzmas nerfs, then more Grotzmas, then Grotzmas nerfs, then like Emperor's Children, EC nerfs, Death Guard nerfs, Knights rework. It was crazy. This year's been fucking wild. And then we had a really good post Death Guard Knights rework. We had a really good time for 3 months. And then they were like, guys, Victrix Honor Guard. And now we're like, God damn it. Yeah, I don't know. The OC5 sticky. Yeah. Crazy. That strategy was incredible. Absolutely crazy. I'm interested to see if that like multiple abominant list ends up picking up steam that we talked about last week. It actually feels like it could be really good. I don't know. I'm curious to see. TTS knockout bracket for broken rules. At their most broken. That would be fun to do at the end of the edition, I think, where you like we look at the apex of every army, like release Eldar and Genestealer Cult, like Mordaka Orcs, release Codex release Death Guard, like all of those like have a bracket. I mean, Eldar just wins. Like there's no way we can come close to release Eldar. The only time 10th edition Index was good was if everyone just agreed not to play Eldar. It was fucking disgusting. As much as I hate to say it, because I think pre-banning is like a step too far. Man, the Germans were so right. They just immediately declared after the reveal article came out for Eldar. They were just like German WTC events or whatever. The German national circuit is just gonna ban Eldar. You're like, we haven't even played a game yet, and they're like, it's gonna be broken. You don't know. You guys don't know. They were right. They were so right. I will eat my hat on that one. They aren't always right, but that time they fucking were. Holy shit, dude. Oh my, the flamethrower D cannons. Yeah. I'll Overwatch. I guess I'll plug in 4 6s to hit here. So they all hit. And because they're lethals, they're AP4 for D6 damage, and I'll plug 2 more 5s in. So I'm gonna roll 2d6 for damage, and then I'm gonna hand you 10. Cool, man. That's fun. I'm having a great... And my Spirits here converts 1 more to a lethal hit. Oh, sweet, dude. Thank you. I'm having a fun time right now. I'm glad you could Phantasm into range to do that. That's great. What a time. Spilling Defluence? Yeah. Spilling Defluence was a trip. Definitely pretty wild. I remember I activated Magnus into a 20-man guard platoon. It was like a 20 model like Cadian Shock Trooper squad with an attached command squad, I believe. And he just like called sustain full rerolls, rolled a bunch of 6s, and then just blitzed like 4 6s on the devastating and killed the entire unit. Just everyone died because we had called devastating, or because the gaze of Magnus had devastating wounds and shot a billion times. Crazy. It was insane times. Insane times, chat. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about some other stuff. Eldar Wednesday didn't play the game. Yeah. The Warhamster has visited us with some interesting threads. We have I have 2 I really want to talk about, and then we have a couple more we could get into if we have time. But one of them is one of the most wild single discussion threads I've seen in the Warhammer competitive subreddit. We'll get to that one later because we do have a classic drama discussion here, chat, from a couple weeks ago. From Warhammer Competitive. Ashton Dayrider over here talks about talking it out at the end of a tournament game. I need a community view. By the way, I haven't read the comment section of this. I know it gets a little spicy, I believe, and there is a follow-up to this thread, so we'll read that afterwards. Have a bit of I need a community view on a situation I feel weird about. We're playing in a 5-round 750 match play tournament. First of all, weird format, right? It's not combat patrol. It's not quite incursion. It's very new player stuff. And it's not 2,000 points, right? So it's not like a standard competitive format. But it is very small 40k, not even incursion level 40k. Incursion level probably, if you're experienced, probably takes you 90 minutes. If you're inexperienced, maybe 2 hours. 750, cutting 30 minutes off that probably, right? You're talking about like a 90-minute game. However, the low points value does mean you get, like, it's 5 rounds. They might have played all 5 in a day. I don't know what round this is. I don't know, but either way. It's not a GT or anything. There is no hard stop on rounds. The tournament organizer will walk around at the end and say, wrap it up, which he did in our case. He said, don't play on round 5. So I hope that they did round callouts. Usually if they don't have like a specific timing mechanic in mind, what they'll do is they'll be like, all right, it's 50% of the round done. You should be in round 3, that kind of thing. If they did that, this makes a lot of sense. If they have like a timer, like post on the wall, usually game stores will have TVs around that you can put the timer on. If you do that, then it becomes very obvious how long you have to take. And then at the end, the TO can be like, hey guys, you went too long. You have to wrap the game up after this battle round. So he came around before the end, said, don't play round 5. Here's where it gets weird. In every game I've ever played, we've talked it out if we call it close to the end. I went second, wrapped up my 4th round accordingly, did some consolidation toward a nearest objective, got ready to talk out round 5. I have an Execrator attached to the last 6 models of a Black Templar Crusade squad heading into his deployment zone, Ballistas on an objective, and 3 Blade Guard veterans with a Judiciary in engagement with his single remaining model, a Tyranid Warrior. It's currently 56-56, and this player, as we remember, is going second, so he gets bottom 5 scoring. So he's got a big leg up once we get to round 5. In my mind, we talk it out. It's absolutely obvious that I will win. He has no way of scoring enough that with a single warrior, it needs to fall back if he wants to do anything other than fight my Blade Guard. The Blade Guard will also fight first, so it doesn't, like, regardless of what happens there, the Blade Guard are gonna kill that guy. I've got 3 units on the table. It's clear I've won. Well, not according to the score. He took the view that the TO said not to play round 5, so we hold the points as they are and call it a draw. Not at all an unreasonable one, but not what I was expecting. I could have actually scored a couple of extra points of secondary if I had been planning for that outcome. We called the TO who didn't know what to do. Well, you made the call, man. Just decide. He said eventually, if we could score it out round 5 very quickly, then we could, which gave me the win. I feel like that was the right call. Not just because it was to my benefit, but because if I had 1 Blade Guard left and he had 300 points of Tyranids on the table, I would have given him the win in a heartbeat. But I still feel shitty about it. The correct advice is probably for the TO to be more firm on times using chess clocks, but ignoring that, I'd be really interested in other views. First of all, I'm going to level with the OP here. I think your opponent, first of all, you're playing Space Marines into Tyranids. It sucks for the Tyranid player. And you have what sounds like, for 750 points, basically your entire army remaining, right? 6 models of Black Templar Crusade squad. That's what, like 85 points. They're like 14 points a model now, right? 70 points. Plus an Execrator. So you're talking, if he has enhancement, it's like 150 points. 3 Blade Guard veterans with the Judiciary, it's another 150 points. And a Ballistas Dreadnought, that's another 150 points. You're talking over half your army, close to 500 points remaining on the table versus 1 Tyranid Warrior. In that case, we actually just had a situation almost exactly like this come up last night. We streamed a T5S2 finals game. One player had 1 unit of Rangers. The other player had 4 Deathwatch kill teams, but the Deathwatch player was clocked out. In that case, it didn't matter because the other player could not score high enough to win. So the Deathwatch player had been able to run his whole clock out in order to table the other player to the point that it didn't matter what game actions he took. However, it was the case that the player who is winning on attrition, they've made more attacks, they've moved more models, and they typically have more models left at the end of the game. I imagine that this Black Templar player is probably has used a lot more of the time by the end of the game here. I would hazard a guess. if I were to keep that in my mind. So if we're thinking about the mindset of the other player, you've probably had play this Tyranid player who's played Tyranids, don't forget, and have probably not having an amazing time because you registered Tyranids for a tournament. I'm sorry. But you've basically like stood there and probably watched this Black Templar army slowly eradicate everything you had. When it comes down to the end of the game, the TO says, stop playing. And you said, oh my God, I've done it. I've sat here for most of the game and I've been able to bring it to a draw, right? That feels like a win for the Tyranid player, who I have to guess was just watching his army vaporize slowly but surely. However, obviously the TO, then we corrected. Now I think the call at the end here, probably correct to level a little bit of constructive criticism on the TO here and just say, pick a side, right? You can either talk out, right? Like maybe you go to end round and then you say, hey guys, you get 5 minutes. If you can complete scoring for the game in 5 minutes, you're good. Otherwise, we're going to call it a draw or whatever, points on board. Or you say, I said don't play round 5, so don't do it, right? You have to pick one at a side, one or the other. Calling the TO and being like, hey, what do we do here? And the TO is saying, I don't know. It's like, all right, man, you just got to decide which one. So that's an interesting situation. F in the chat for playing Warriors in 2025. Yeah, I mean, it's 750 points, right? You probably had... If it's new players and you're coming out of the Leviathan box set, right? You probably have the Tyranid Prime, and I think even in my getting started with Tyranid's video, I say like, well, if you have the Tyranid Prime, you might as well play the Warrior Squad because you need a counterpunch. They're not an ideal counterpunch, but it uses all the models in the box. And like, I don't know, if you play in a smaller table size and your terrain's dense, you can have them stage in the middle. The 12-inch move Tyranid Prime can push up far enough that you can get melee warriors in. It's actually probably not the worst unit ever. They're not optimal, but also Tyranids at 750 are probably really struggling because you don't necessarily have the point breakups to like take the monster mash that you would typically need to compete, right? You're like, oh, I need 3 Exocrins and 2 Tyrannofexes to have a chance of killing, like, if I put it Briggs Whole Land Raider. So if I don't have those, what the fuck am I going to do? And, if we can pay 200 points for a Tyranid Warrior Brick, I don't know. Maybe that's what we're going to do. When playing 750, players are usually having to look up rules and stats constantly if they don't generally have memorized rules yet. That does happen for sure. There is some of that, but in fairness as well, it is only 750 points, so the number of rules that you have to remember are typically lesser, right? We have less models in the thing. Tyranids have a better win than Black Templars right now. R.I.P. for Black Templars. I do think that's probably because a lot of people who are really ready to like get good with Black Templars ended up probably dropping them, I imagine, in 2,000 points. But if you're playing Tyranids, especially, this might have been pre-Data Slate too, right? Because it was a couple weeks ago. So Black Templars were probably had extra stuff than they would have had if the game was played now. But also, you're playing Tyranids like probably out of a starter set, and you rock up against somebody who has like universal +1 wound on every weapon in their army, and you're like, an Armor of Contempt. You're like, cool, man. Sick. I'm a great time. I'm going to charge you with my AP2 melee weapons and then just get rinsed super hard. I will never recommend Gene Stealers. I don't know, chat. It seems like all the good Tyranid players play Gene Stealers. I will not argue with results. As much as I don't like a move 8 unit that can't advance in charge, it is clear that the upper echelon of Tyranid players swear by 30 Gene Stealers, and so, I don't know. It is what it is for me. Scar is 40% of Drukhari results. Well, I don't know. I don't know about that anymore. We've got new faction like leader Steve Trimble over here, I guess, and some other people. Cody Giroux doing well with Drukhari. I think the new Spectacle of Spite stuff is looking pretty good. Ordinary Incident over here says, I mean this with kindness. How on earth did you not finish 5 rounds at 750 points? Were these matches 45 minutes? Response, deleted. Brutal. Ash and Day Rider, 2-hour rounds. Both were relatively new players. I've been playing for a while, but this is my first game I ever played with Templars. Lipton Superior says, genuinely bring a chess clock then. I let opponents who run out of time use my time unless the round time is about to end, in which case I politely let them know they've timed out and usually explain the policy up front. That said, I've only once had an opponent time out on a clock. I found that ever since I've started clocking my opponents, my games run faster. I think that having the clock present makes people more mindful about how long they are taking. That's 100% the case, for sure. One interesting thing about timing, and I was thinking about this earlier, because we actually expanded the chess clock timing for T5S2 events for this year because we updated the rules recently. If you are the non-hosting player for online events that I run, you get an extra 5 minutes. So we actually are playing with longer chess clocks than we were previous season, and we're still watching people run out of time. And I think part of it is because time expenditure in a tabletop game is basically a gas. It's compressible. It will expand to fit the container in which you place it, right? And so if you give players, it's a 2-hour round timer, and the player goes, okay, I have 2 hours to play. So you're thinking about stuff or you're looking around. You have to consider those two people have to use that time. If you give them a 1-hour chess clock, suddenly they're watching their allotment of that time tick down. Immediately, your whole mindset changes. I 100% agree with this. If you put yourself on a chess clock, it removes all of the wishy-washy. Well, I don't know. What should I do here? I don't know. Let me just double check every rule in my army and think if I have any stratagems to use here. Right? You'll just play by the seat of your pants because you are now cognizant of the amount of time you're taking. 4-Star Titan says, I often bring a clock to tournaments in fairly casual events to say that at least one person is doing something crazy like 30 minutes. I don't need to adhere to it strictly. Just the presence of the clock speeds up games significantly. Yeah. I'll never turn down the use of a chess clock. Although Dragger says, I would never play with you. Brutal. My 6-hour Drukhari game was not clocked. It was not. It was not. Every time I'm like, I don't need to clock casual games on 40k. And then, well, a game like that happens and I'm like, God damn it. I should have clocked this. That game was really good, but it was like, make a move, my guy. We did have, for a while, we actually did not require chess clocks. Chess clocks were at the discretion of players, even in finals games. And then we had a 7.5-hour game of Warhammer 40k. And I was like, never again. My current housemate, my friend at the time, was co-commentating it with me. It was like, we started at like 8 p.m. or whatever. It was late, I think, maybe 9, I think 10 p.m., something like that. He commentated with me for an hour or two and was like, all right, I got to go to bed. He went to bed and then woke up and we were still streaming. He woke up for the end of the game. It was fucking crazy. And then I was like, all right, never again. Every finals game is clocked. We are not ever having this experience another time. Wild. That will just happen if you don't clock players. The sad part too, was it was like, one player took like an 1.5 hour long turn to perfectly set up a defense against his opponent. Forget he had a 6-inch heroic intervention stratagem. His opponent didn't remind him of it. Obviously, we can't tell him about it. But so he spent this entire turn and he's just like very carefully setting up every single model so his opponent can't do anything. His opponent immediately goes end of the fight or end of the charge phase, goes, I'm going to heroically intervene. Fucking crumbles his whole front line. All of his screening units got killed. Units got into his artillery in the back. It was fucking disaster. It was terrible. It was not a good game. Sad. If it was a 7.5 hour game, we had a really exciting finish. It would have been sweet, but it was like 3 hours for the first battle round, and then both players doggedly stuck to the game to make sure that they played it out correctly just through the end. Even if one player is getting ruthlessly tabled. Disgusting. Did not enjoy it. This is a pretty wild take. I typically bring a chess clock and I use it just to make sure that my opponent is cognizant of the amount of time I used. Immediate response, I would never play against you. Well, first of all, man, he's talking largely, I think, about using tournaments. At least this comment here, which I don't know if we're responding to with this one. I don't think we are. But this comment here is like, I bring clock to a casual tournament. This is obviously a casual event, but it's still a tournament. So I think having some sort of round timing mechanism makes a lot of sense. And also, you're not necessarily in a position to refuse to play the opponent. You certainly can. You can just say, oh, you bring a clock, I will concede the round. But like, come on, man, what are you doing here? You're gonna waste everyone's time doing that? All right. Talking about saving time, That would be one way to do it. As soon as my opponent brings a chess clock out, I concede. Okay. Unless you intend to use significantly more than half of your round time, there's no reason to dislike chess clocks. Yeah, the only times it gets weird is if you are inexperienced with it or your opponent's like trying to weaponize it in a weird way, where they like flip it to you but don't tell you, that kind of stuff. Perhaps it would make me an outlier in a competitive setting. OP is talking about 750-point tournament. My army is also painfully slow due to Overwatch being a major tool. What the fuck are you playing, man? I always apologize to my opponent, but I have to use Overwatch. Is Overwatch going to make you take an hour to resolve a 750-point game? I don't know if that's a big part of it. Are we playing like flamers, like torrent weapons? A bunch of torrent weapons? Like maybe. All we play is Eldritch Vortex of Etaf, Thousand Suns. And we always Overwatch with the Infernal Master. Yeah, I get that. But also, that activation's like a minute, maybe. Pretty wild results. Before I started bringing chess clocks to events, the only games where we had any difficulty finishing on time were due to dodgy opponents taking the piss. I had a guy argue that I couldn't shoot or attempt a charge out of deep strike and had to find a judge to back me up. That's unhinged. What is this? I love these situations where somebody's like fighting you on a core mechanic, a very fundamental core mechanic, right? We're not doing like weird pull charge stuff. We're not going to debate the legality of being selected to shoot with the infernal puppeteer, right? That's probably something we should have discussed at the beginning of the game. But like basic stuff, I reserve my unit and then I shoot you with it. Classic. And your opponent's like, no, you can't do that. The genuine response I've had in those situations is you just deadpan, well, I can, right? Like, there's no rule that says I can't. I can't prove to you the negative, the double negative, that says nothing stops me from doing this, right? Because I would have to show you every page in the rule book. You know, it's those people, it's like, you know, those people who just only like bring up negative criticisms of their political opponents or whatever, and suddenly you have to prove to them that you've never done every single thing they accuse of you. And that's essentially the same thing here, right? I have to prove to you that the rules don't say this, which means I have to basically tell you every single rule that exists and to go through the entire rules commentary with you. There's no time in the universe to be able to do that if your opponent questions you on all this stuff in a tournament game. You just look at them and you say, hey man, if you want to find a judge to clarify that, you certainly can. I'm going to keep going. I will take the game action. If you find the place where it tells you I cannot do this very basic thing, then let me know. I'm not going to stop the game and go find a judge who will tell me that I'm allowed to move or just shoot in my shooting phase with my units. That's crazy. Absolutely wild. Bringing the clock has completely eliminated that issue for me. Barely an inconvenience for opponents who play in good faith. That's an important piece to keep in mind. Plenty of armies who want to Overwatch every round. They can. Those players still easily finish their games on time. Personally, I don't even bother hitting the button to put my opponent's Overwatch on their time. It's not a significant amount of time, especially a 2,000-point game, right? You have 90 minutes, and Overwatch takes like a minute maybe. Okay. I will put on their team if they're hemming or hawing over whether to Overwatch or not. For more than a minute to encourage them to make a decision. At the end of the day, OP did post the competitive Warhammer Reddit. He's getting advice geared towards competitive play. Competitive games are played on a time limit with clocks accepted. The accepted method. I can't speak today of ensuring fairness under those conditions, both in terms of reining in bad actors and allowing for both players to have an equal chance to play the game in rare cases where game actually needs the full 3 hours. In 10th edition, that becomes more and more necessary as we move on, especially as like more complex armies tend to come to the fore too. We're seeing like, I mean, I brought up the example of Deathwatch, but Deathwatch is a really good example of an army that takes a million years to execute correctly. Ultramarines as well. Ultramarines do tend to take a really long time to execute. A lot of Space Marine builds tend to do so unless they're very aggressive. I guess why I'm writing all this is I find your initial reply come out as quite closed-minded, especially considering the subreddit we're on. Frankly, if I met somebody in real life who refused to play with a clock under any circumstances, I would assume the kind of player who was going to have a lot of issues or disputes and analysis paralysis and be a pain to play with. Truthfully, players who are playing in good faith or in respect to their opponent's time don't need the full round. All that to say, I hope if you're ever in a situation where your opponent asks to play on a clock, you're open-minded enough to give it a try. I think you might find out that it's not how you assume. Brutal, chat. Absolutely brutal. That's crazy. For chess clocks, if I'm the Tyranid player, you shadow in the warp your opponent. Does the time go to the opponent or me? That is like a weird gray area. Sometimes it depends on the specific effect that you're resolving. Generally, if your opponent is taking tests, it is going to be on their time, though. So I would. Sometimes it's funny because like it's an effect you're resolving. So a lot of times players will just be like, "I'll battle shock you" and keep it on them. But oftentimes, because it's already in the other player's command phase, they're going to be doing their command phase stuff, and you'll just be like, before you go to battle shock step, I'm going to hit Shadow in the Warp here, and then your opponent just goes and keeps doing their thing. Shadow in the Warp is, fortunately, it's a once per game effect. Like once per game, you don't tend to have the same level of time consumption as you would if it was something that happened repeatedly, right? There are like effects that are like, every single X phase, every single fight phase, I pulse battle shock everywhere, and it can become a huge problem if you're in a big scrum, where suddenly you're taking 20 battle shock checks over the course of the game. But because it's a once per game thing, your opponent's taking like what? 8 battle shock checks? Should not take that long to resolve. Maybe 30 seconds to a minute. Pretty wild. Had a game on a tournament, you shadow in the warp, and he argued it was on your time because it's your role. Took almost 20 minutes? No way it took 20 minutes to roll out battle shocks. That's egregious. What situation is your opponent taking 20 minutes to roll battle shocks? At that point, you're just like, come on, dude. I understand what's going on here. You're trying to game me for time off my clock. That's crazy. I guess like if it was 20 minutes and it included a discussion about whose time the effect is on, I guess I understand that. But like, oh my god, a 20-minute effect resolution, Jesus. There is a point here to be made that I think I want to address. He was looking up rules for any buffs. Well, that's on him too. Then, if you're looking up your own rules, regardless of whose effect is being resolved, that should be on you regardless, right? The mechanical resolution of the battle of the shadow in the warp could be on your time. That's fine. But if my opponent goes, oh, I think if I like shoot you with a gun, right? And I'm like, oh, what's your toughest characteristic? And he's like, well, let me think. I think I'm in this aura, which could have an effect, but I have to remember what it is. Like, yeah, the clock's on you, dude. You're looking up your own rules. That is exactly the kind of guy who would be here arguing that you could not attempt to shoot or charge out of deep strike, and you have to go find a judge, and it takes 15 minutes, and it's on someone's chess clock, right? That's the kind of guy that this person, Lipton Superior here, is worried about playing against. Is the person who goes, I'm going to take these tests on your time, but before I do so, I'm going to take 15 minutes to look up every rule of my army. That's crazy. If that's exactly what happened, of course. Now, I do want to address this point as well, because I do think this is probably a common criticism. Pink Neonco Punch says, feels pretty wild that a tournament organizer worth their salt wouldn't have chess clocks for every table at the tournament. I've run as a judge for 20-plus table tournaments. There's a chess clock provided by the TO for every one of them. So that's obviously, I'm sure that's a pretty common point of contention here for a lot of players. However, it's important to keep in mind, most of the tournament organizers who have a chess clock for every table are either affiliated with the game store, and the game store has provided those as part of their service, or they're from a TOC, or they're a habitual tournament runner, right? There's someone who's like semi-professional at running tournaments, or they're from a tournament organizing corporation who will do it for money. And in that case, of course, you should supply a chess clock. If you're like, well, listen, I've been to frontline gaming events, and I've been to every single away games event in the last 6 months, and all those had chess clocks. Yeah, of course. Because they make all their money running tournaments. Of course, they're going to provide the materials to run tournaments more smoothly. This is a 750 points casual event for new players. It is both, and especially given the fact that the tournament organizer wasn't necessarily prepared for this question about timing. It sounds like it's both probably a new community and a new tournament organizer. I would not in any way expect this tournament organizer to have to bring chess clocks with them. Not only would I not expect them to be required to use chess clocks because it's a new player game. But I also in most RTTs, I don't think it's necessary for most TOs to bring 10, 20 chess clocks for an RTT level event, right? If the players want to use them, they should bring their own. But also, this is a small casual event with a clearly new TO. I think it's unreasonable to expect them to have their own chess clocks for their event. I think that's a lot. Chess clocks are expensive. In my country, the expectation is if you want to play a clock, bring your own. Yeah. Outside of like big, super major level events that are throwing tens of thousands of dollars around, right? In that case, okay, there's maybe a more reasonable expectation of having a higher presentation. But if we're here at a 750-point new player event, I am not expecting you to bring anything to the table besides some terrain and a mat. So anyway, chat, what do we think about this? The TO eventually ruled that this player could play out round 5, literally just score their bottom 5 primary and win the game on the spot, versus the tiered player who was under the impression that the game would end in a draw. How are we feeling here, champ? What about chess clock apps? Chess clock apps are fine. I have actually seen players. I used to do this myself, where I literally had an old phone that didn't have a SIM card anymore. And I would just bring the phone and a battery brick, and I would just put it on the table because it would have battery. That's the only reason. And I would just use it as a chess clock app by itself. That's fine. A lot of some players will use a scoring tablet, and the scoring tablet can have an integrated chess clock as well. Sometimes you do that. That's for sure. You want it to be in an easily accessible position for your opponent, though. Like, you don't want to have it be like, oh, it's an app and it's on my phone and only I can switch it back and forth. Come on, man. It needs to be on the table. It needs to be accessible to both players so you can flip it back and forth. Obviously, like a $40 chess clock from Amazon is going to be the easiest way to do it, but you certainly can use an app or something similar. Would have asked the TO if they want to score the current rounds or talk out round 5 and add points for it. May just make them make the call. Yeah. Yeah, I wonder too if the TO maybe wasn't necessarily aware that the game was at that state, right? If they just go like, oh, where are you guys at? When they show up halfway through round 4 and they're like, where are you guys at? And they're like, well, we're in round 4. The TO's like, all right, well, you're done after round 4. But not realizing that the one player literally has one model. And all they have to do to round 5 is just boast paths to turn back and forth and score passively. And obviously there's a little bit of there's a communication barrier in 40k that we talk about every once in a while, where someone who's very adept at the game, and clearly these are newer players, someone who's very adept at the game can very accurately describe the game state to a tournament organizer, right? If you say, we're like round 4 is about to close, that'll take us about a minute, and then we just need a passive score for round 5, the TO will probably say, okay, score it out. But if you say, oh, we're in round 4 and it's end of his 4 and we're like almost done with the 4th round, the TO is going to be like, well, probably takes you another 5 to 10 minutes to finish round 4. And then we would have to hold the other games if we wanted to go to round 5 and play out another 5 to 10 minute round 5, without necessarily knowing that the game is at the state where one player is basically tabled. So that could be part of it too. Would the app be appropriate to require at tournaments? I don't think so. No, especially not an app, because most players will use their phone for rules, either scoring or rules lookup, right? Rules reference. And as soon as you require them to use a chess clock app, most players don't have an extra device to do that on. Like that does feel like that is significantly more than requiring someone to simply own a chess clock, to be honest, in my opinion. Chess clocks are $14 on Amazon. Is that real? I think I have a chess clock in my tournament bag. Oh yeah, they're $20 now. Fuck me. I think I tried to buy one. It must have been last year. I think I tried to buy one a year ago and it was like $40. But it might have been that it was just like every once in a while they just go out of stock for whatever reason. Like a big chess group comes in and buys like 200 chess clocks, and suddenly the global chess clock, or at least the Amazon. Oh, excuse me, chat. I'm knocking my thing. Chess clock supply is low. Oh, for $40 you could get a nice one now. Damn, dude. Look at that. That's pretty good looking. I bought one of these, honestly. Those are swell. I kind of want one. Should I buy one, chat? The problem is I always forget my chest clock. Oh, this one's green? Fuck. Oh, it only goes to 60 minutes. Oh, could you put it to 90? Oh, how far do the LEDs go up? That's glorious. I love that. Buy the Leap one for 25. Oh, these ones? Yeah, I've used these ones before. I have a bunch of these ones, the little $20 ones. But these ones, the button gets loose sometimes, the switch, or gets a little loosey goosey. I have a really bad experience with clocking one time. I remember back in the day, because War Machine, we'll do a War Machine story real quick. War Machine used to play on chess clocks. It was like required, basically, for tournaments to play on chess clocks. And a lot of sort of OG events, because a lot of these started like 12 to 13, 14, 15 years ago. And they didn't necessarily have the digital chess clocks as widely available back then. And so a lot of events had OG collections of retro analog chess clocks that they had collected. And the problem was sometimes the flags on OG chess clocks propped at different rates. So previously it used to be like there was a little flag here, and some of them would tell you if you had 5 minutes left. So as it was just to indicate, right? As soon as you got to, as soon as the minute hand hits the flag props up, so it's more visible. So you're limited on time, right? And then once the flag drops, you're out of time. So you know exactly when your time expires. And I remember I played for the longest time on a series of analog chess clocks that had a 5-minute flag. So the flag would prop at 5 minutes, and you knew as soon as the flag went up, 5 minutes left. Once it drops, you're good. And I death clocked in a game, and I lost in a winning position. I was about to win the game, and I lost because the flag propped on a chess clock I'd never played on before. And then it dropped, and I realized it was a 2-minute flag and not a 5-minute flag. And so I was like, okay, I have 5 minutes left, plenty of time. And I made sure I was like very careful to measure everything out, that I was like doing everything correctly. Pass the turn, they pass back to me, and then my flag drops immediately, and I lose. And I was like, I thought I had 3 more minutes. What just happened to me? That blew my fucking mind. That threw me. I'm glad we don't do those anymore. The analog chess clock sucked. It was really difficult to tell whether or not you had the same amount of time as your opponent, because it was like a manual crank to give each other the same amount of time. And you just have to be like, yeah, that looks right. So some person could just have like 45 more seconds on their clock that you did, which if it got down to it was really bad. Pretty silly. I'm glad the industry has moved past these guys. Wild back in the day stories. The guy who called my models a slur. Yeah. I mean, turns out when you've been playing these games for like whatever, fucking 25 years almost, then you get a lot of stories. Since I was a little wee tyke. All right, chat. So that's there is a follow-up to this situation that I think is important to discuss. Ashton Day Rider returns. I think about a day or so after they originally posted. Should you always talk it out? No, an update. For those who saw or commented on my last post, I apologize to my opponent by messaging, and we're cool. At least as cool as a Templar player can be with somebody who plays Orcs and Tyranids. Oh, this poor fucking guy, dude. Oh, man. Orcs and Tyranids in 10th edition 40k in the year of our Lord 2025. I guess he had that Mordecai period. Maybe that was okay. Fucking Orcs, bro. Maybe one of the biggest tragedies of this edition, in my opinion. Now I'm of the view that unless we specifically agree between us that we will talk out a game after the game, then it's not cool to assume it will happen and play accordingly. If I make decisions in the last moves of the game on the assumption we'll talk it out, and he says no, that's on me. I got a ton of really thoughtful replies, only of a minority of the usual Reddit nonsense telling people they will never play against somebody who's used this chess clock. So I'm very grateful to the community for helping me steer through the situation. Thanks all. Big ups to Ashton Dayrider for recognizing that he maybe made an assumption based on prior experience rather than what the TO was prepared to rule at the time. And you know, I guess recognizing that he's going to change things moving forward. I don't even know if necessarily he's hugely in the wrong here. I do imagine he probably used more time during that game than his opponent. And also putting your TO in the spot where like the TO made a ruling and then you're like, well, did you? What did you mean by that? You know, that's always a little bit funny. If the TO says something, you should go by what they say the first time. But I don't think necessarily that it's unreasonable to assume your game will be clocked out. But either way, I think it's super cool that he recognized that and I don't know, has pledged to think more harder in the future about it. I think that's great. So good to him. Only use the clock for Blood Bowl. You had a guy in your league who would stall. That sucks, especially for Blood Bowl. Like Blood Bowl is such a casual game. Like taking Blood Bowl hyper seriously is like the greatest sin I think of all time. If you won't talk it out, you should 100% have the sense of good sportsmanship. You should 100% have. If you won't talk it out, you have 100% no chances, no sense of good sportsmanship. Yeah, I imagine that it wasn't like because the discussion that they have. I don't think that it's fair to assume that the Tyranid player in this case was like, no, we're not going to talk it out. It's a draw. I imagine that the Tyranid player, who sounds like it's a newer player, was like, well, the TO said it's over. Why do you still want to score points? The TO just came up to us and said the game was done. So like from their perspective, I understand. It doesn't sound like they were like flat refusing to talk it out. It sounds like they were just echoing what the tournament organizer had told them to do immediately prior, right? Where the tournament organizer's like, you're done, don't play round 5. And the other player goes, okay, so in round 5, and you're like, hold up. What? What do you mean? I do think that in most cases, I think a lot of people would be like, oh, I have one model left. Like, you got this, man. But I do imagine that there is, I don't know. I do imagine that Tyranid players played his mind out to try to hit the draw, and his opponents, I don't know, but might have taken a long time there. Only use the clock. Brought a binder with list, point, and all the rules for data sheets for each unit, just like Blood Bowl. That's a good way to do it. Having a binder is really good. Especially if you find it easier to navigate than something else. I think 39K and honestly, the 40K rules app's like pretty good, but the 40K rules app's only good if you have every rule unlocked. Unfortunately, 39K is like a good resource if you just need to reference stats really quickly because it's searchable. So you can just be like, what does an intercessor do? Enter C. Oh, I found it. That's helpful. It does miss a lot of rules, but if you just need to know like what your weapon profile is, it makes a lot of sense. All right. Could be remembering a different thread. The first deleted comment mentioned the other player was off talking to other players and interacting. Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. Yeah, the deleted comment is gone, so I can't speak to that, of course. Let's move on. I think that's definitely a good even if you don't play on a chess clock, right? And I don't think necessarily that it's 100% required that you do want to play on a chess clock. But as you are discussing, sorry, chat. I'm just trying to pull up the other thread. As you are discussing your pre-game stuff, I play by intent. This is what my units are. Blah blah blah. You could probably add in a thing about like, oh, I'll talk it out like round 4 if we like don't have any stuff left or we're low on time. That's like a good thing to include in your pregame discussion with your opponent, I think. That's probably the lesson to take away here, the biggest one. We're like, hey man, if we're at round 4 and one of us tabled, like I'm good with just calling the game. Like, yeah, dude, you got it, bro. If they have that discussion at the beginning, then there's an expectation that you'll probably talk about at the end regardless. And it doesn't, you're not just putting it on the TO. But that's something that you might need more play experience before you figure it out. Curious my thoughts about Grand's Coven going into Scintillating Legion. 4+ Fatal Pain seems really good. It does until you realize that it doesn't, that it's a wash again on Magnus. And Thousand Suns tend to struggle into demons generally. I think it's probably really bad. So, like, you get a 50% damage reduction on Magnus, but Magnus into almost every attack in that matchup, besides like Screamer melee, Magnus loses his damage reduction. It doesn't work against anything. In addition, Thousand Suns need command point spend to reliably kill Lords of Change, because Twist of Fate doesn't do anything to them. And a lot of times you're firing flamers without many buffs that are wounding on 6s like fishing, right? So the profile matchup's already weird. You have to pump 2 to 3 command points into Magnus every turn to get work out of him. And Magnus's damage reduction doesn't work already. So having played that matchup with, in fairness, non-scintillating Legion demons, it's a fucking disaster for Thousand Suns. It's so bad, dude. It's like one of the weirdest mismatches in 40k, just because of like the mechanics like don't mesh, right? It's like I'm fighting against high toughness, all invuln saves with my, outside of Magnus and like the sorcerers once per game, relatively like low, mid strength, high AP shooting army. That requires CP, and my only benefit I have in the matchup is a stratagem I will probably have to use multiple times per turn, which means my damage output plummets. And obviously all my experiences with Demonic Incursion, but the Lord of Change becomes like, actually, it sounds weird because of Infernal Mastery or Sorcerer's Mastery or whatever it is. Whatever, Psychic Dominion. I can't remember the name of the 4+ Fatal Pain strat. But because of that, like, you would think that would be a huge boon, but that's literally all they have going for them, and everything else is really bad. So, I don't know. I would be a little bit worried about it. It's a whole thing. Got a Thousand Suns combat patrol for Christmas, which you focus on collecting first to add to it. I don't even know, chat. I'm probably gonna do. Well, we'll see. I don't know. My how to play videos more recently have kind of tanked, and so it might be that I think that there's just like less new players like joining the game, or players aren't worried about starting things efficiently, moving into a potential 11th edition. And so I don't know if people are necessarily like that into that content. So I don't know if I'm going to keep doing the series. We'll see. We'll see how the Salamanders video does. But Thousand Suns Combat Patrol. I mean, you need like Zangors. The Foot Demon Prince is like really weird. Oh, I guess it's a Demon Prince. So you could play him as winged. Well, you need Magnus probably. I would say start with Magnus and go from there. Start with Magnus and more character sorcerers. You have 10 rubrics, so you probably need 2, like either an Infernal Master or 2 foot sorcerers. And then more utility stuff. More Zangor Enlightened, more foot Zangors. That's probably the rationale. That's what I would probably say. We'll see. But I'll probably do Thousand Suns, maybe Astra Militarum as the next one in the series if I keep going. But the one this morning was, I don't know. It always makes me sad when I put up a video and it takes like 2 weeks to make and stuff, and it's like 600 people watch it. Oh, okay. All right, I guess. All right. Let's move on to the next chant. The next thing. The next thread here. So this is an interesting thread, and not because of the context of the thread. There is a comments thread that I think is fucking fascinating. And I, as someone who considers sportsmanship to be kind of like implicit in the game, like I think you should play with sportsmanship because it makes the game more fun for everyone involved, which means you get to play more games and people like you. Maybe I just have a pathological need to be liked, and so I try to be nice to my opponent. But like, the scoring sportsmanship feels a little bit to me like an extra sort of wooden spoon. And I do think it's important to incentivize sportsmanship, but I've never been one to be like, I'm going to try to win sportsmanship by like bending over backwards to my opponent. Because I just feel like there should be a baseline of sportsmanship that everyone should like aspire to adhere to. And I don't know. It's always interesting to me. So I've never really paid attention to like, you know, trying personally to like go out of my way to win a sportsmanship award. Maybe I'm like criticizing myself here, opening myself up to criticism. Be like, I've never tried to win sportsmanship. Everyone's gonna be like, oh, he's such an asshole all the time. I don't know. I just don't think about it that much. However, there's a thread in this post that's absolutely incredible. I'm a TO for local tournaments, usually 20 plus players. We like to award prizes for sportsmanship, both a sportsmanship prize and as part of a best overall category, which usually includes soft scores like sportsmanship and painting, and then also hard scores. So if you're someone who's like, I came with my army that I love painting, I just come for the love of the game, but I also 4-1 usually because I play a lot. Okay, cool. Best overall. You got it, buddy. We operate by asking players to score their opponents 0 to 10 and totaling each other's results. But it's obviously not working well enough because we've been seeing lots of 2, 3-way, or even 4-way ties. This is the weird thing about scoring sportsmanship, is that you're like scoring how pleasant your opponent was. And in scoring someone, it's like when you rate someone on like, you know, you rate a delivery person and you're like, if I rate below 5, like something went wrong, right? If they got me the delivery in a timely manner, they've completed their job and they've done it. So 5 stars for you. And you don't want to like, if nothing went like disastrously wrong, you don't want to be like, I'm going to slap them, right? And it feels like the same thing for sportsmanship. It's like, well, none of my opponents were mean. None of my opponents accosted me or like cheated. So I don't know. Everyone seemed like they were nice. And then, you know, the people who are going out of their way to be nice don't necessarily get to be extra nice, because you feel bad if you played against someone who was nice and then someone who's very nice, but you're like downgrading the nice person because you didn't give them a highest score. It's just like, it's socially, especially for someone, you know, like me who might be socially awkward. It's socially, I think, rubs people the wrong way. So it's super not surprised to see that they tie a bunch of people, right? There's a bunch of people who are just they were just nice people. And so everyone scored them 10s. No, because everyone plays the same number of games and they played against everyone who is a nice person just gets a bunch of 10s. The ties are usually between people with perfect scores. So we can't use any of the normal score-related tiebreaker methods. You can't be like, well, what's your strength of schedule for sportsmanship awards? Understandable problem to have. There are some very good answers in here. You can give sportsmanship score to the lowest point score in terms of wins. So you can tiebreak it in reverse of actual placement. That's okay, right? The most sportsmanlike person over the course of the game, even who lost. Rosmus over here prefers the inverse. The tiebreaker is if you win more. That's like a best overall then, right? If you win more, but are also tied for highest sportsmanship, then you get the benefit. Kawaii Uwu says, local tournament I go to yearly ranks their opponent as a tiebreaker, and then how their opponents rated their other opponents. Tio puts a lot of effort into it to encourage people to be honest and kind. That's kind of nice. And I think a lot of people said rate their opponent, right? Rate your opponents by niceness, because then it's not saying to like, oh, this person was less, like this person was meaningfully less nice to their other person.
Adriong 6931 donated $2 through Super Chat. The tiebreaker is, do they play Tyranids?
Tyrannid players get extra sportsmanship points for being nice enough to their opponent to like hand their army to them to be killed. Or do you lose sportsmanship points for meaning like purposefully deny your opponent a good game? I hope somebody doesn't come out and be like, oh my god, Trevi's so like has no idea about the meta of this game, because like clearly Tyranids like win GT sometimes. They're clearly like competitive faction. I know. It's just funny. It's funny because of how bad they are compared to previous editions. You beat my army. I thought it was unbeatable, so I docked you to lose overall. Saw it tons of times Warhammer Fantasy 40k tournaments. Brutal. Jesus, really? That is disgusting. I do like. There is something, and this will come up later. don't get ready, chat. There is something to be said for like the players who are like really nice. I want to like. I don't think it's the case anymore because I don't think he meta chases as much as he did previously. But like, I have a whole video, right? My most viewed video, single piece of content ever, right, is about Alex Fennel at LVO, and Alex Fennel is probably the most like the quintessential example of a sportsman. You look at him and you're like, he's this tall, like kind of reserved British guy who's just pleasant the entire time and will give you plenty of takebacks or whatever, right? He's just a nice guy. But for a while, every time I saw this man at a tournament, he was always playing like the meta list. I was like, there's no way that if you come up to this guy and talk to him, be like, all right, you are the if you look at a dictionary of a picture of a sportsman-like person, right? It's a picture of Alexander Fennel. And then you look down and it's like the 8th edition equivalent of like 18 Victrix Honor card. And you're like, how nice is he? Right. And I think that there's maybe a little bit of that as well. And like the reverse, you basically like your experience on the table that gets colored by the mechanics of the game. In some cases breaking because one player's army is really broken. Regardless of how nice they are on the table, like that ends up changing what you might score them as. So when you give people a score, it could be that like you didn't think you would lose, and so them playing well colors your score of that your perception of them as a person, right? Even though they're not necessarily related, and then vice versa, what they're playing might color your perception of them. Can definitely come into play. So I think that's I don't know if I necessarily considered it happening in the opposite direction than someone docking someone who's played something really strong on sportsmanship because like, oh, it's not sportsmanlike to play, whatever, Gladius Task Force or whatever. Whatever people hate, right? I think Ancient Victrix Honor Guard is the thing people hate to play against right now, right? Or Death Watch. Death Watch is another one. People hate to play against fucking Death Watch. Even if Death Watch are not the most popular army right now or whatever. Like, uppy downy and you shoot really far? Yuck. Yucky. I hate this. So even if you're the nicest person in the world, I'm going to dock you on sportsmanship. Could be a whole thing. Anyway, I want to bring our attention to a thread, which I think is very funny. And I don't know if I necessarily have an opinion on this. However, it was a contentious thing, and we're going to read through it. So assume that I'm presenting this with no comment being given. If you call out shenanigans, you get docked. I get so mad at Tyranids on my opponent when they do bad. When my Tyranids do bad, I just feel bad for my opponent. I think at one point I feel so bad. I played against the nicest fucking guy at Nova. The Tyranid player I played in the semifinal round was like just a perfect. He was pleasant. He was upbeat. The dude could not give two shits what was happening in the game. He was just a swell guy. And I think my entire report of that game when I was like posting game updates in the Discord was like round 6 versus Tyranids, so I got the win or whatever. And it was like I felt so bad for him because he was like, here's some bottles. They all died to bloodthirsters. Okay. And he was like upbeat the whole time. It was crazy. I would have been pulling my hair out. Like as like Scarbrand like ruined my whole deployment zone. I don't know. It was like a whole thing. He was amazing. Shout out to my tiered opponent at Nova. He was amazing. Anyway, let's talk about this one thread. The aptly named Kind Argument 4769 says, sometimes it's a feeling based on walking the tables and seeing who's having fun. Sometimes someone is doing something like bringing 2 Gorkanautes or melee Votan or agents of the Imperium. Sometimes it's when a couple people tell you how fun their game was. I guess another person you notice a theme. Mammoth Classroom 89.6, right? This is immediately going to go immediately going to tie into what we were just talking about. Says, I love that also these are like Reddit, like auto-assigned usernames too. Bringing a bad list is not sportsmanship, nor is deliberately sabotaging yourself to reduce your on-table scoring. Kind Argument says, that's your opinion. Note, I never said reducing your own scoring. I will say that I have, like, especially in talkout situations, I tend to be much more generous to my opponent than I probably should be, right? So, like, if we're towards the end of the game and it's like, I've already won, but, like, if I've won the game, I don't care so much about what my opponent scores. If I'm not playing differential scoring. If you're playing differential scoring, ruin them, right? Drive them before you, or whatever. Destroy your enemies, drive them before you, and hear the lamentations of their women, or whatever. But if you're not playing differential scoring, if you're like, oh, I drew recover assets at the end of the game, and you're like, oh, you could probably get that with these two guys, and they're like, well, wouldn't you kill them? And you're like, I mean, I don't care. Like, go for it, right? So I wouldn't say necessarily sabotaging your own scoring, but in pursuit of sportsmanship, I 100% think people will allow other people to score more often than normal. Kind Argument says, this might be controversial. He did get a bunch of downvotes, and I wonder if this is why. I won Sportsmanship twice this year. Once because I play agents, and after 5 tournaments in a row of playing with a positive attitude, the TO wanted to recognize how I never let it affect my attitude. The other time was because my score differential over 3 rounds averaged 11 points. Brutal. That's brutal. Mammoth Classroom says, losing games is not sportsmanship. Playing without getting a bad attitude is not exceptional sportsmanship. It's the absolute bare minimum, and anything less should result in removal from the event. That feels like a hard line. Maybe I'm biased because I am angry when my Tyranids die, but that does feel like a hard line. Kind Argument says, did I say I won best sportsmanship for losing games? Did I say I won because I didn't have a bad attitude? No, I won best sportsmanship for making a fun and positive experience for 3 opponents, introducing them to an army they rarely see, and playing close competitive games without any sort of disagreement that left a sour taste for anyone. Oh, it was a score differential was 11 points? Oh, so he won or lost by 11? It wasn't just that his differential... His, like, actual differential score is 11. Actual differential score being 11 over 3 games means you got, like, 17-3 3 times in a row, or 16-4. If the actual, VP differential is 11, it actually means that all the games were 10-10s, basically. According to the WTC scoring rubric. If you don't want to award sportsmanship, then so be it, but I can't think of an event that doesn't award it that I've been to, so I think you're the outlier. I don't know about that. I have very rarely seen best sportsmanship in RTTs. They usually do, like, a raffle and, like, a smoking boots. Sometimes they do a sportsmanship, but it usually, I don't know. I guess maybe I don't pay attention that much. But for, like, small one-day events, it feels like maybe 50 to 30% of them does sportsmanship awards. Large events, sure. But smaller events, it doesn't feel very common to me, but maybe I just haven't been going the right ones. If someone's asking for advice on how to award best sportsmanship, they've already decided they want to do that. No sense in your coming into it saying that they don't. So introducing people, this is a Mammoth Classroom, 89-6 again. Introducing people to an army they rarely see is not sportsmanship. Army choice has nothing to do with sportsmanship. That's the issue here. You keep bringing up stuff that has nothing to do with sportsmanship just as a justification for winning. This highlights why sportsmanship scoring is bad. People inevitably ignore actual sportsmanship standards and score it based on things like army had a cool paint scheme or brought an overpowered list, right? And it feels like that, I can say, I think for sure has an impact on if you are scoring like 1 to 10 out of on a rubric or whatever. That feels like it absolutely will have an impact on what people think of you, right? Oh, he was the nicest guy, but he was playing 18th Victrix Honor Guard, so he's an 8, right? And not a 10 or whatever. Kind Argument says OPS for advice. Yeah, they're talking about, I guess, like the relevance to the thread. I've only seen you trash talk in sportsmanship awards, not actually define what sportsmanship is, and you've outright said it shouldn't be awarded. It seems like your mind is that either there is good sportsmanship or bad sportsmanship and no variation. There are people who do the minimum and people who don't. I really don't know how to respond to that because I've seen people be great sports. You can tell the difference between someone who does the minimum to keep the integrity of a game and someone who goes above and beyond. And it isn't simple as hamstringing their score. But score differential is a good indication that they displayed good sportsmanship. You play thousands of games. Generally, someone that people enjoy playing because of their sportsmanship will have those patterns that are recognizable. If you have an issue with sportsmanship awards in general, then I guess take it up with society. Mammoth Classroom asks why score differential is a good indication that you displayed good sportsmanship. Kind Argument responds by saying, I realize I should clarify something before I continue that could affect this discussion. I'm talking about tournaments that have only used the GW standard scoring for games, not WTC scoring. In those cases, yes, having a smaller score differential is hurting you. It isn't. Yeah, that is a good clarification, actually, because I did get confused about that earlier. It isn't necessarily as simple as close scores are the result of good sportsmanship, but that lopsided scores more often than not are not an example of good sportsmanship. Also, when we say good sportsmanship, it isn't the bare minimum. I'll provide you a good example. Game A, player 1 made a bad play due to a measurement error or misunderstanding of an ability. They did not realize this until player 2 chooses to capitalize on it, but doesn't say anything. As a result, player 1 has a significant part of their army destroyed, cannot recover. The game's already lost. Although player 2 already had a favorable matchup, was in a powerful position, player 2 continues to play the maximum ability to score 100 points, not sacrificing their score at all. While doing so, sits on primary objectives to contest and deny points, even destroying the home objective holder for no benefit to themselves. It is brutal. We call those team tournament players, chat. We could have just substituted player 1 for the member of an 8-player team. Game B, player has made a bad play due to measurement error misunderstanding. They do not realize this until player 2 chooses to capitalize on it, but they don't say anything. Player 2 looks at the current state of the game, favorable matchup partner, powerful position, offers to let player 1 correct that misunderstanding. Player 2 continues to play his maximum ability to score 100 points, not sacrificing himself. Game ends 100-75. Was player 2 wrong in either scenario? No, they're perfectly within their right to capitalize. And help player 1 to have a game to play, like in game B. However, I think most of those people would agree. One of these games shows exemplary sportsmanship. The other one was a perfectly fine situation. An example of how quickly things can turn. And one of them was the example of a team game. The other one was a regular game played by normal people. I think I understand the point here with like but I don't know if it's necessarily generally the case. It's like always the case. You can have good sportsmanship and also be like being absolutely like you can be destroyed utterly by somebody who has good sportsmanship. And I don't necessarily know if the score will reflect that always. Scores are not often perfectly representative of exactly what happened in a game, right? Sometimes just like dice can go weird or whatever. The matchup's like really skewy one way or another. Anyway, chat, we could continue down this thread, but I think it's largely more of the same. I'm curious to know what people think about this. I don't know if I don't personally like have a really good dog in this race. I think I understand.
Briong 6,931 donated $2 through Super Chat. Who on Noble 6 would get the Sportsmanship Award?
You know who doesn't get the Sportsmanship Award? Based on this, based on Kind Argument, if we ask this question of Kind Argument 4769, it would be that Jackal Sniper or the fucking the elite sniper guy who shoots cat through the window. She made a positional error and he didn't correct her on it. And so he should get docked on sportsmanship. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is a good one. I'm curious to see what people think about this because it feels to me like both players I think are actually coming from like it sounds Mammoth Classroom. I would say it sounds very argumentative in this thread, but I understand where they're coming from, right? Where it's like sportsmanship should reflect your comportment during the game, which shouldn't necessarily hinge on your game actions. And his which I understand, but I guess the open question is like, is it possible for a human being to have an experience like playing a 40k game against somebody and not have that color their perception of how that person of their opponent as a person? I don't know. I've literally no idea if that can happen. I don't know. Josh Pratt, sportsmanship is so subjective. Any extra criteria, basically all we have to go on. If somebody went 1-4 and everyone says they were pleasant, why not give it to them over a 5-1 player? I do, and I think that there's probably like meta game. There's like like reasons, right, to grant someone at a lower rank a sportsmanship award, which is probably that. I would like soft scores. I would prefer to give to people who are lower in the ranking because I think it incentivizes them to participate more, even if they're not winning, right? But someone who's 5-1, even if they're the nicest person in the world, they probably won a bunch of tournaments in the past or like placed very highly. And I don't know necessarily if they're like a sportsmanship award would be as meaningful to them as it would somebody else. But I don't know. I think that feels like it's up to the TO and the community, maybe. Players can respond negatively to extroverted people. I have gotten that a lot. I have seen that quite a bit. I've like seen players who are like, I do think personally, I don't know how much I can talk about my own like experience with players because I think I do feel like I get a different level of interaction with people over the table than I think other players might. Because I've had a lot of players who I played against, and I'm like, we have played dozens of times, and we had an amazing time every time. And then somebody's like, I played that guy, and I fucking hate his guts. I'm like, oh, that's weird. How come we had different experiences? I wonder why. I wonder why someone would treat me differently over the table than somebody else. So I don't know if necessarily I can say that for sure. But I have heard people, like I'll play against somebody who's very extroverted and very energetic or whatever. And I'll play them and I have a great time, a wonderful, fun time. And then I'll talk to somebody else and they're like, oh, I played that guy. I hated it. He was like way too aggro or whatever. I was like, all right, man. I don't know if that's the experience I had, but I do think that, I don't know. I think I get the best side of people a lot of times, speaking personally, which definitely colors my judgment of people sometimes. Sometimes I have to look around that, and analyze their other games, I guess. There's a Dark Mirror episode about this kind of thing where they like raid each other. If you don't want it to be a pity award, you want to promote the top end players to be nice and positive. Yeah, I guess I understand that for sure. But it's like the point that the other person made, where it's like if it's a tie, right? If several players both got lauded by their opponent, and I've seen some events that they take one vote from everyone. They just make everyone, like when they submit. Sometimes they'll make the players submit like a survey at the end, and they'll just say, who was you, like write down the name of your favorite player that you played against during the game, and then the player who gets the most of those will win. And that's much more difficult to tie. But I understand the people who would be like, if it is a tie, you should give it to the person who scored lowest, because the chances that they are somebody who's in it to win the whole tournament are like much lower. And I think a sportsmanship award is more meaningful to them. But I don't know. Being a great opponent and not tilting, even if you're getting stomped, is a sign of good sportsmanship. That is good. And I do think, too, that I think, in my opinion, maybe if I were to get on my tiny soapbox here for a moment, as someone who, like I mentioned before, I don't know if I am like have a dog in the sportsmanship award race, but like it feels to me like sportsmanship awards are very meaningful if they are given if they're given to people for extenuating circumstances, right? Like, I think a good example is like, oh, I'm getting stumped. Like, oh, I watched a game and one player, it was a terrible matchup. They were playing against like, a top 100 ITC player or whatever. And they were like brand new and they got fucking rolled, but they were like joking with their opponent, having a good time the whole time. And then like giving it to that person for that sportsmanship feels more meaningful than giving it out to someone, right? Than like having it as one of the awards that you can win. It almost feels like it being an award that gets won based on a ranking almost sullies the whole idea of sportsmanship, right? Whereas if you give it to someone without necessarily having the obligation to give it to anyone, it's more meaningful, right? Does that make sense? I almost wonder if like big majors would benefit from having like 5 sportsmanship medallions. And in instances where, and they're given like a medal, like a military honor. You know, you've gotten the whatever, the Medal of Honor from the Congressional Medal of Honor or whatever for like being destroyed, but like having a super duper good, upbeat personality about it, or giving your opponent a crazy take back, you know, that other people wouldn't necessarily have done, or something like that, right? But like not necessarily have it be a guaranteed thing that someone will get it. And so you could give it to 5 people or 10 people, or you could give it to no one. If everyone just plays a normal game of 40k, maybe that's it. I don't know. I feel like that would be the platonic ideal. I don't know if anyone does that. Like Chewbacca's medal. You just don't get one. You were just the co-pilot and you didn't even say anything. You just growled the whole time. You don't deserve a medal, Chewbacca. Also of the opinion, if you didn't build or paint your army, you should have a disclaimer before voting. Before voting on sportsmanship? I don't know about that. For painting, sure, yeah, I agree with that. They gave him one as they gave him one of the sequels a pity prize. Yeah. I do remember that. And then you're like, well, you're like, now, is the idea that Chewbacca was actually just holding a grudge for 40 years? Like, now he seems like kind of an asshole. I don't know. Anyway, chat, that's kind of what I want to talk about. I don't know what the answer here is. I don't know if there is an answer. Soft scores are weird. That's why they're called soft scores, because they don't have a hard scoring metric. And I understand all of these people's perspectives, and I think all of them are valid. And I don't know the correct way to do it. It does feel a little funny, though, if you say, I showed up and I played agents and I tried to get ties, and I got ties with my opponent, so I got sportsmanship awards. And it does feel like a little bit like, you're like, why are you playing agents to get sportsmanship awards? Is that sportsmanlike? If you're actively trying to get the award, is that sportsmanlike? Not to say that Kind Argument 4769 actually did that, but I think the reason that Mammoth Classroom over here is responding to his thread in such a competitive way is that he has read it as that being the case, right? Kind Argument saying, I won sportsmanship award in a bunch of events because I play a bad army and I try to tie all my games. And you're like, well, is that sportsmanlike? Because that just feels like gaming the meta. And if you read this thread that way, then I understand how someone could get rubbed the wrong way from that, right? I 100% understand where somebody could immediately respond to that negatively. I don't think that that's what they're saying. I think that Kind Argument 4769 here is saying like, hey, I'm somebody who has won sportsmanship awards in the past, and so I can comment on this thread as someone who has a little bit of, personal experience with the process to get these awards. Not necessarily like this is a how-to guide to do so, but I think I understand how somebody could be like, well, like you should just get an award because you played agents. Although maybe you should at this point. Honestly, agents players, they need all the help they could get. Maybe we should give them an award. Somebody mentioned, and it was in a different thread, they said that one of my local players plays agents, and we made the games close against him by giving him 750 free points, which is a lot. And I laughed a little bit. I was like, oh boy. Imperial agents are a hotbed of discussion that we'll probably do maybe next week on Warhamster Wednesday, because it's certainly, as we go through another update cycle with no changes to Imperial agents, it's definitely a hot button issue. So something to discuss, but definitely I think coloring people's comments in this thread as well. Call it the Positivity Award. I like that. I like that for sure. Sportsmanship also feels like an outdated term, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm dyeing my hair blue or something, but it's like it feels like It feels like a bunch of guys in like a hunting club somewhere who are like patting themselves on the back for like shooting a fox, like the best sportsman. Yes, I galloped on my horse with my red jacket all day, and I chased the hounds where the hounds were smelling, and I shot the fox at the end of the hunt. I'm the best sportsman. Is sportsman even a good term? It's a weird term still. Agents probably going to get 750 points extra for 40% win rate. Yeah. Yeah. Oh boy. Agents are, yeah, that's a certainly one of the factions of all time. Yeah, we'll probably talk about agents next week if nothing spicy comes up this weekend. For sure. Almost lost to agents purely due to Canis Rex. Yeah. Honestly, so I made this point a bunch of times, and people fought me tooth and nail. They're like, fuck you, Trevi. You're stupid. You're a stupid dummy. But I was like, the good allies, like when an Imperial ally is good, it does nothing to the top Imperium factions, right? Because you're never going to be like, oh, I'm playing Victrix Honor Guard, but I trade a Victrix brick and a half to bring an Imperial Knight that doesn't get Oath of Bowman and can't be targeted by enemy stratagems. You would never do that. So if your codex is good, it doesn't matter if who your allies are, as long as they're not like hyper efficient utility, right? Like Nurglings are a good example of the opposite of this. However, if your codex is bad, like Imperial Agents, and the super faction gives you allies who are above average, all it does is make you above average too. So when Canis Rex was really broken, but Imperial Knights were like not really played, I was like, this is actually kind of sick. Because now, like, at the time, like Sisters, Custodes, Militarum, Imperial Agents didn't exist as a faction, I think, at that point. But like, they all just like had Canis Rex in their list and like buoyed them up to like a 48% win rate. And I was like, is that the worst thing? Like I forget what was at the top of Space Marines of Imperium at the time, but it was not those factions. But every once in a while, they'd 5-0 at GT because Canis Rex is really broken. I was like, this actually just feels kind of healthy. I would rather those factions be good on their own merits, but if we can't do that, giving them one good data sheet from outside a faction to make them somewhat competitive feels okay. I don't know, champ. And I think Imperial Agents are a good example of that. Like, honestly, that faction probably lost a lot when Canis Rex got nerfed. Because, like, we went from having this one big thing that we could at least answer 2 tanks with to being like, well, I hope you stand on objective so my Navy Breachers can hope that a melt a gun that wins you. Like, ugh. Oh boy. I don't know. Unironically, I've earned 1,000 points of agents. Thought about doing a few more and allying them to my knights to give them a try. Yeah, I mean, like, you can give them a go. I think they're good for a laugh. But the problem is, too, that, like, I don't know if anything in agents is, like, particularly flashy. Sometimes you get a faction that's really bad, but you have, like, one really interesting combo you can do. And agents have stratagems that don't do anything, that have just never been eroded because they forgot about them. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, all right, sad. Love it if I had a sit-down podcast with Sam Pope and talks about Tyranids. We could probably make it happen, honestly. Sam Pope's got a YouTube channel now, though. So, I don't know. Go comment in all his YouTube videos. Tell him that you want me to do a podcast with him. And all we can do is just talk about Tyranid data sheets every week. Be like, this one sucks. we should have done something different. The problem is that all I'm going to say is that I just want that you should just have not gotten rid of the 9th edition Tyranid Codex just to keep that one. Would have been fine. All right, chat. Anyway, I think that I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. That was my discussion for the day. I think the discussion about sportsmanship is really interesting. The talking it out discussion, also very interesting and an important one to have with your opponent before you get into your games, especially if it is going to be a tight timing situation. 3 Pyrovores can't go through terrain. Yeah, fucking Pyrovores being like a T6 infantry model. Okay. All right. You would be a vehicle in most other factions, but I guess you can be an infantry model, sure. With a with a like a Gravis model's defensive profile. Like one heavy intercessor is the equivalent of like a Pyrobor on an 80 mil base. Incredible. I will most likely be live on Twitch later. I have like some random stuff I want to do, and I want to get more reps with Salamanders, so we're probably playing Salamanders on Twitch later this evening, so I'll see you over there. But otherwise, I'll see you next week for regularly scheduled 40k live streams. We're going to talk about metagame. I'm sure some events are going to happen over the weekend. We'll have a nice, better look at the metagame than we have currently. See if it is truly blue here at the top of the upper echelon of stuff with Ultramarines and Scintillating Legion. We'll find out, I guess. Have a wonderful new year as well, everyone, obviously. We only have 8.5 hours remaining in the year, so please have a wonderful time. Drink responsibly, and don't forget to kiss someone when the clock ticks over. Also, speaking of new year, we have a new GT over on the Discord. I will drop a link to the GT in the chat right now. That's going to be launching the end of next week. Right now we have 36 players signed up, but I'm sure we could get some more. Oh, excuse me, 46 players. We actually got 10 signups today. Holy shit. Please come and hang out. I'm going to make sure this link works. Please come and join that one. There's going to be door prizes, so if you play all 5 rounds, you get a chance to win free stuff, and then obviously big prizes for the players who win, and also the people who some of the proceeds go to 10% of the proceeds go to prize pool for the invitational at the end of the year, so we can get the most exciting invitational gameplay at the end there. Anyway, folks, Salamanders need a codex. They do, so they can stop having compliance, the codex compliant bonus, because they're broken. This is my opinion, anyway. So I'll see you then, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and I will talk to you later. Cheers.